Good afternoon and welcome to Talks at Google. We're very fortunate to be joined by Lily and Dov, who I'll introduce properly in a second. I'm James Rosenthal. I work in the Global Strategic Initiatives team within Cloud at Google. And I'm very grateful for you all joining. I think this is a really timely and will be a very interesting conversation with Lily and Dov, who are both amazing. I'd be grateful if during the course of this talk, any questions you may have that you want me to put to Lily and Dov, if you put them in the chat, and I'll make sure from the live chat we're able to sort of bring them across. And as I say, I'll be able to put them to them. So we're very excited to hear from you as well. There are lots and lots of things that I'm sure you want to ask. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce you to today's guests, Lily and Dov.
Yes, I am Lily Ebert.
Hello, Lily.
I am here to answer you any question what you are interested in.
And we're very privileged and honored to have you with us, Lily and Dov. Aside from being grandson, social media whiz and sort of ghostwriter on Lily's behalf. So firstly, I thought what would be useful is just to give some background on Lily and how you come to be in this position today. And then I'll start by asking you some questions. As I say, we're incredibly fortunate to have you with us. It's a few days out from Holocaust Memorial Day, so extremely timely. And what I'd like to do first, as I say, is sort of begin with you, Lily, and your birth. You were born in Hungary in 1923. And unfortunately, after the German invasion of Hungary in March 1944, you and your family were transported to Auschwitz concentration camp, and several other members of your family were selected to be gassed and cremated at Auschwitz. You were very fortunate, along with your sisters, a couple of your sisters survive. And eventually after that moved to Israel. And then in 1967, you and your children moved to London. And since 1985, when your dear husband passed away, you've been working to teach the lessons and your experiences from the Holocaust in schools, businesses, and several other organizations. You've been recognized for these works at a very high level. You received the British Empire Medal for services to Holocaust education, and you're in great demand to speak on panels and be interviewed in forums like this. And I think it's something you mentioned as we began speaking, earlier this afternoon, about the limited sort of window, we have to be able to speak to survivors. Please God, everyone lives a long life. But there will be a period, in the not too distant future, possibly, where there are fewer and fewer survivors who can actually answer questions live. And then we'll just be left with, with video testimonies, with books and what have you. So I think the opportunity we have to speak to you today is remarkable. I mean, you're, approaching your 100th year. So long may you be healthy. And as I say, we will ask you many questions. And Dov, thank you for supporting. I mean, you've done an incredible job, I guess, as we call in the tech industry, as a side hustle, despite doing your A-levels, which are your sort of matriculation exams in the UK. You've been able to set up Twitter accounts for Lily, a TikTok account, which has got last time I checked, 1.5 million followers, 21.5 million likes, incredible, and becoming amongst the most popular videos on TikTok. So huge kudos to you. And I think we probably have some questions for you as well. But to start off with, Lily, what are the lessons, I guess? What are the things that you think are most important to share up front with this audience? What, in terms of having the perspective you have, what has your history taught you that you think we should concentrate on and make sure we focus on?
Focus on is the most important. I thought I alone that somehow the anti-Semitism was finished. We don't have problem with that. And the trouble is getting old. So what can we do that people should understand to live with each other? It makes no difference what nationality, what religion, what man, woman, or anything. How could we live in peace, in real peace together, and anywhere all over the world?
Yeah. So I think hopefully everyone would agree with that. That the most important focus is that we aim to live in peace with one another, regardless. That we don't discriminate against anyone who's other, or any differences. And yes, I think the fact that things like anti-Semitism, as well as many other aspects of discrimination, don't go away. So I think it's dependent on all of us to make sure that we take an active stand wherever we see discrimination in any form, and call it out. Tell us a bit, something that struck me when I read your book, and the book is remarkable. I'll mention it again at the end. Tell me the story about your pendant.
My pendant,
Yeah.
that is really, I think, it is one of the most unique story. What really could not happen. Something happened, but it could not happen. Because what is this pendant? How is that where it gets? I must begin a bit further back. That I get from my mother when when I was a young girl, very young girl. When the Germans invaded Hungary, I don't know why my brother put this pendant, because in Germany you could, when you came with any gold, even golden teeth, the gold was taken off. So you could not have gold. So when before that we were taken to Germany, my mother put this golden pendant in the heel of my mother's shoe. It is it did it only. I don't know how he had the foresight to do that, but it happened. When we arrived to Auschwitz, lucky, my mother said we should change shoes. So the shoes was with me. When we arrived, they took away from us everything. All the dress, underwear, everything. Normally, they took away also the shoes. But our group of people was one of the last one. So I don't know why they left to keep our shoes. And like that, I had these golden pendants in my mother's shoe. But in Auschwitz, the heel of the shoe was worn out. So what could I do with the pendant? I had even not a piece of paper. I had nothing. They took away everything. So where could I? But I had to keep it. So I kept it in this little piece of bread that we get every day. I had to change day by day by day. And like that, the, the, these little gold survived Auschwitz together with me. And I think that is the only goal what survive. Therefore, it is so important that the world should know what could happen, what can happen, and it survived with me.
That's it's remarkable, and it's remarkable you still have it, and testament to you. If we go back prior to Auschwitz, and growing up in Hungary, how did you see the sort of changes that were sort of coming? Did you have a sense as you were getting older and as the Nazi Party was in power in Germany of the things that were to come, and how your, I suppose, neighbors and former friends perceived you, were thinking about the Jewish community in Hungary in the late 1930s, early 1940s, before you were transferred?
That is interesting. And you will say, it is nearly impossible. Today I think back, and I don't know alone how could it happen. It was already, the war was nearly over, and we were so protected. It was not the best thing that we didn't know even what happens in the world. We didn't know even that something terrible like that can happen. So for us, it was unbelievable. It came, and um, we could not, we don't know how to 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 say. It was a very big shock.
Yeah, understood. And I'm just interested because of the parallels that we see since the Holocaust, about where you have one part of a community who previously lived together with another part of a community turning on each other. Again, how did that make you feel, where people whom you'd grown up with, maybe people who you were at school with, were not then maybe supportive of you, of the Jewish community at the time? I'm just interested, because we have to obviously be very watchful of that now in society.
Because it is so easy to hatred, to make it. It is, people even don't know. That was my question as well. We lived, we played with each other. It was relatively, was very good. We were in peace. We played as children together. It was no problem. And suddenly, how it could help overnight, that I cannot understand and I cannot explain for the world. But we see it today again, that it can happen. The trouble is, what it happened, we saw it happened. Now we will make the world.
Please take a glass of water.
I think I'll jump in here while she's getting a glass of water.
Thanks,
the reason
Dov.
it's so important to hear from the Holocaust survivors themselves, especially now, as you say, in the last moments. My great-grandmother's 98, and most of the other Holocaust survivors are not much younger. The reason it's so important to listen to them is because we can really see how humanity can sink to its lowest points. And when hatred is left unchecked, it can spread so quickly, and it can really corrupt society to points where you think that society would never sink to. And that's what we have to be vigilant about today. When we see racism in any form, anti-Semitism rose 500% in the UK last year. But when we see racism of any form towards any kind of people, towards any community, no matter where you are in the world, we have to realize that it's our collective responsibility to stamp it out and to call it out and say this isn't acceptable, because otherwise we risk something like the Holocaust, or something like a situation where your neighbors you've grown up with from another community turn on you. We risk that happening again. So that's why it's so important to hear from survivors like my great-grandmother.
And hatred, it is unbelievable. It is like fire, it can go through the world. And suddenly, then the whole world think it is okay. And the youngsters learn from it. And I don't understand when hatred, killing the Jews, it begins with words, then it comes on. It never begins with killing. So words, we must be very careful
Yeah.
that when we hear never leave, we say, I say only so what. Words doesn't hurt. It is not true. Everything begins only with words. And then it gets worse and worse. When it is worse and we look out for it, maybe we can change something. But when we let it out later, I'm sure we cannot do anything about it. So we must be, and teach, we don't like it. We would say for our children to teach, the world is such a nice place, we can live in quick and nice in peace together. That is one of the worst things that we cannot teach for that our children. We must open their eyes that they should see the first moment when hatred begins, do something. Don't close your eyes because I went through, and that was, I think, our biggest problem. We did know the whole world, 75% of the Jewish people were not alive already when in Hungary it began.
Yes.
And we didn't know. We were so naive that we thought, and now that's what I say for anywhere. When something bad or anything begins, in the first minute you can maybe help. Later it's too late. So do it.
So the lesson is, and I think it's, couldn't be any clearer. Whenever any of us see any sort of discrimination or any othering or any bad behavior, do something about it. Don't assume. Don't think that it will all be okay because we want a quiet life and what have you. We all have a responsibility as civilians, as members of the human race, to stand up and do something. I think that's a very, very clear message. Go on, please.
Because it begins only with Jews. Don't think where it will get hatred. We know when and where it begins, where it will go, how far, and where it will finish. If it will, we don't know.
I think that's very clear, and I think as we look around the world and we see all the challenges in the world, the message is as clear as it could be that we have to do something. Whenever we see these sort of things, we can't let it go. And whilst most people do want a quiet life, I think that's not going to help us as in society in the long term. What I struggle to understand, having read your book and obviously studied the Holocaust and what have you, how are you able to take or bring positivity out of something that's so horrendous, so awful, so negative? I mean, I've been to Auschwitz. I've seen the gas chambers and stuff. How you have such an amazing spirit and you have such an amazing message. How have you been able to turn that negativity into this, this energy and amazing passion to teach and help?
Because I saw one thing. First of all, I had, luckily, my two younger sisters. And I know I had to look after them. So that was mine. In a way, it was, I had responsibility.
Yeah.
And responsibility, it helped. So I know that I have to do but everything to help for it. And I know something else. if I look really what happens, this negativity, with that I will not achieve anything. Hatred with hatred, we will not come very far. So I have to try, even in this terrible position, to be as positive as it is possible. And I did it. And I know something else. One thing, one thing to survive the terrible situation, in any very bad situation, to survive it only one thing can help: hope. Hope, we don't know today, is very bad, but we hope for tomorrow it will change. Because change can, that is life. Change can come in a minute. And responsibility. That is what it helped me.
Amazing. And it's interesting you say hope, because I was watching another talk about a similar subject last week, and they sort of distinguished between hope being an active human expression versus optimism, which is more passive. And I think, you know, in order to hope, one has to sort of put activity behind it. So I think that, you know, there's definitely something there. What allowed you to, I suppose, feel somewhat positive, you know, about humanity, about people having experienced the Holocaust and seen the worst that humankind can do?
I think my upbringing. At home, I lived in a very secure family. I, I, I was brought up seeing nice thing, nice love, helping each other, and it helps. It helps. So I did terrible things. If I want to be truthful, I even didn't know that so terrible thing can exist. So it was, and I worked all my life, all my life. I promised myself, if I survive these terrible times, because it was my other, what I promised myself, if I came out from this terrible situation, I will teach the world. I thought I was naive that I can change the whole world. Now I know that is a bit too much, but you have to do everybody. Never say you cannot do, finish everything do, but how much we can do, we have to try to even to think I am the only one who can change the world and work for it. And we don't, never give up, never give up hope, and never say, I cannot do it. This word never ever use the word, I cannot do that. We must say, we will, and then we will.
Amazing. I think that, you know, that's incredibly inspirational, Lily, and thank you for doing what you do. And it kind of also, with having such an inspirational great grandma, it's no surprise that Dov is as prodigious as he is. One of my colleagues watching this amazing interview with you, Alexandra, asked a question, which is like, what was it like when the camp was liberated? I remember reading you were, I think, on a death march at the time, but how did it feel when the Allied troops came in?
That is the problem was that we were on so low down that we could not think really for very. And they took us to that march, really, the last. So we were tired, hungry, without shoes, And we could not think. And the other problem was we saw people who could not anymore carry on and what terrible thing, and they just shot them. So see that in a way you could not carry on. In another way you say you have to, because if not you finished. And I had to be also strong for my two younger sisters. And they were also half awake, half sleeping, and marching, hungry, without shoes, in the rocks. It was and you don't know what, and you cannot see hope. Then it was the situation. Where will that how can that finish? You can, who was not in this situation, it is not answer. You cannot understand, and you know what? I wish for everybody, nobody should understand this situation, because humanity doesn't need.
I understand. And when the troops came in and liberated you, so you and your sisters were in this terrible physical and mental situation, and enduring unimaginable hardships. How did it feel when you saw the troops coming in and that period of liberation? Because I don't know up until that point whether you thought that was even a possibility.
What I tell you, people will not understand. Humans are humans only. We were in so terrible situation that we wanted only one thing: sitting down, sleeping, and to have something to eat. We could not take it in, really. That was our second birth, because without that, we could not carry on to be alive. That was, and for this time today, I lived much longer than before this time.
That's true, yes. Thank God.
So how important it was, this minute. But the truth is now something else as well. I speak it, I talk about it, because I am alive. I am here. But these thousands or millions who are not here, for them, people don't know about them because they cannot talk. And they are much more than that we are who survive. So therefore, who survive, I promise them myself, and I do it. You cannot give up to talk about it, because only we are the victims. We know this. We went through it. In a few years' times, it will be only history, then and any other history. It will go. So therefore, listen, people, listen to us, that it can happen, and look out for it. That never, ever, don't let something there like that happen. In the first moment, finish it.
And I think I'll just quickly jump in to mention that this year's Holocaust Memorial Day theme is one day. And as my great-grandmother said, unfortunately, one day in the future, there will be no survivors around anymore. And my great-grandmother's story of surviving the Holocaust, as she just said, is not the typical story of the Holocaust, because this typical story involves the obliteration of entire families, villages, and communities by guns, gas, or starvation. And that's why it's so important, especially to be here talking to Google around the world. Talks like these are so important. And as Elie Wiesel, the Nobel laureate and an Auschwitz survivor, like my great-grandmother said, when you listen to a witness, you become a witness. And it's up to us today, everyone listening. You are now Lily's witnesses, and it's your responsibility to take her testimony and share it with your children and hopefully grandchildren and great-grandchildren, just like I'm sitting next to my great-grandmother. And that's why it's so important.
Thank you, Dov. And I think we all feel privileged. We all feel the weight of history on us to make sure that we do become, we are witnesses, we are advocates to make sure this doesn't happen. And, we have the benefit of this video will go onto YouTube, and along with many others, you obviously have your TikTok channel, which is very popular. And I think that is an incredible way of connecting, your great grandma's story with people these days. I struggle to know whether we do enough in terms of educating people. I guess we don't, because if we were doing enough, hopefully, these issues of discrimination would sort of ebb away. I just don't think we haven't quite got it yet. I'm interested to know from both of you, maybe you, Dov, because you're doing it at A-levels at school age. What else do you think we could be doing? I mean, you're talking to a technology company audience. Do you think there are other things that we could do that would help get this information out there and combat, misinformation, where we see, Holocaust denial, Holocaust misinformation, all of this?
I think
stuff.
Education is very hard, because I'm doing history A-level at school, and it's so hard to learn about the Holocaust through a textbook. When you learn about facts and you hear the number 6 million, it's so hard to comprehend. I think the reason our TikTok account, which now has 1.6 million followers and has about 7 million views a week, the reason it's had such success, success is very subjective, but the reason so many people like to view our videos, I think, is because you can't understand the number 6 million, but you can understand Lily Ebert's story. You can understand one person's story. And I think when using social media, especially, or resources online to educate about the Holocaust, it's so easy to get lost in so many facts. When you search up the Holocaust online, you'll be presented with a Wikipedia page with just fact after fact. But what we have to focus on is sharing real life stories of the people that were there. You have to hear their voice and their pain and their stories to realize what was lost and the extent of the Holocaust, and to fully understand it and learn from it. And I think education in schools is so often focused on the wrong thing. It's so often focused on the facts, but it's so hard. I'm a child, a teenager, and I'm in school, and I hear many survivors coming to school, and I understand how hard it is for people to sit there for hours on end just listening to the facts. So that's why I try and show people in as little time as possible my great-grandmother's story, so that they can truly understand it. And I think that's where we have to head in the future. We have to emphasize as much as we can on survivors' testimony and on their individual stories.
And most important is that try to open their eyes, that not hatred. With hatred, we achieve nothing. We have to work if we want or not. Because that is the only thing what we can do. Because we humans, especially today, the whole world is really one little place. And we have to work together. Because if we will not live to achieve it, that we can live with each other, then all of them, of whole humanity, it will be worse. Today's world, it cannot happen that for only for one part or for one sort of people will be good. Or we have to try for it, that it should be good for all of us, and I think that is what we should do. If not, I don't know what will happen to the whole.
Well, I think it's very clear, and I think everyone listening and everyone who watches this subsequent, we all have a responsibility to carry that message forward. And if not, we're not doing our job or our duty, I think, to society and humankind. Is it true that I think it was yesterday, you had a very special invitation somewhere And I think it would be nice to hear a little bit about that, because I think it's a real tribute to all of your accomplishments. Where were you yesterday?
Yes, in the palace, invited the palace, and we were invited with Prince Charles.
Wow.
And we spoke just this important period. And it was really so nice to see that the Prince of England, because everything comes from the top, how he is positive and he tries to help really for the whole world that we should, with everybody, with the smallest, with everybody. He is open, we can talk to him. That is, I went in worse places, and when I saw that, then and that gave me so much hope that the world, I hope, will achieve, can achieve. If he works for the top here in England, the prince works for it. So I hope we will achieve the most important part, to live in peace.
And I think the juxtaposition is just incredible. 77 years ago, my great grandmother, or less even, my great grandmother was in the hell of Auschwitz-Birkenau, and to just around above 75 years later, to be standing together with her great grandchildren, 4 generations of her family, with as she said, Prince Charles and his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, to be standing there in Buckingham Palace. I don't think she would have ever thought that would happen. And it's an incredible statement from the royal family and on their behalf, to say that they will not allow something like the Holocaust and its messages to ever be forgotten. Because again, going back to the point that in a few years' time, it really will be, we'll be left without any survivors, and it will be our responsibility. And they've shown that they're going to take a step to ensure that these stories will never be forgotten. And I was just thinking while my great grandmother was speaking on your previous point about what can people online do. And unfortunately, hate spreads so easily online. But what we have to, what people, I think, especially at Google and people who work with these online services, has to show people is they have to promote positive use of social media. And whilst hate can spread so easily, positivity, love, and important messages can do so too. And I think that's what my great grandmother and I have shown on Twitter and TikTok, that there is a space for education if it's used in the right way. And we have to encourage other young children. And I hope that the work that we have been doing has encouraged other young people and people all over the world to use their platform in a good way, and to hopefully use it to educate people about the Holocaust, but also numerous other things.
Well, I think you should be incredibly proud of yourselves, because it has. I mean, I know lots of, obviously your TikTok views and what have you are a testament to that. But my kids have watched your great grandma's videos, and their friends have watched it, and I think there is. And this is true of all discrimination. There's a lot of hand-wringing and people getting upset when they see negative content online. And I think, in addition to obviously seeking to have it taken down, it's really important to get positive content up as well. And I don't think necessarily you two are an exception, that folks do as good a job as they could maybe in getting positive messages in the right channels that tell the facts of history clearly. And also, I think what's so great about the work that you do together and your grandma's book is putting those parallels to other tragedies, or I want to say other, whether it's other genocides or whatever, so that hopefully people who are reading it, regardless of whether they're Jewish or not, or whether their family was impacted by the Holocaust, can see, okay, look at the Uyghurs, or look at Rwanda, or any of these, and think, oh yeah, actually that's why the Holocaust is relevant. That is, that is what, we have to look out for these signs. We have to be super, super careful, because as your great grandma said, it can happen so quickly in a community. You're happily living your lovely existence in Hungary, before the war and what have you, and everyone's getting on nicely, and then over a matter of months that changes. And I think, it's a very clear message that you shared.
And we thank you what you do, just these programs, what is now,
I
what
think
that helps a lot. That achieve a lot of people hear it, and they see we try and we will achieve it because we want to go in good way and try to be positivity, peace in this world, because that is what we want to achieve with these programs, and that is achieve so many people in one go. That is the good thing today. Good and the bad, the same thing, because bad things also. So our world is so open. We can achieve with one program millions of people. And that is people open your mind to this program and try everybody to do what you can for the whole humanity. And then we have achieved a lot.
well, absolutely, and I think it's all of us watching, I think now feel, as I said earlier, like the weight of history on our shoulders. It's our responsibility to be a witness to you, and the fact that you're being recognised by Prince Charles and you getting these honours and medals is remarkable. And I think none of us watching have an excuse. If you can find a positive outlet and I guess a positive mission after what you've been through, I think none of us can have the excuse that we too busy, we too tired, we've got other stuff on. I think it's critical. I'm interested to know, and I don't want to keep you if this is going too long, but where do you get your energy from? If you don't mind me saying, you're 98. How do you still find the power to do all this?
Because I promised myself, I will, what I can, I will do for peace of world. Because I saw what is the other opportunity, and that is not good. So we have to. We have no other opportunity. That is the only one. We have to live with peace.
And last year, it was actually this time last year, my great grandmother had COVID very badly.
I'm sorry.
And I think again she was a real fighter and a survivor, and a few weeks later she began her recovery process. And every day she would try, and I think the doctor who came round was so kind of she couldn't believe how much my great grandmother was doing so quickly after recovering. And we were midway through writing our book, and I went to show her the first half. And I said to her, I don't know what we're going to do. We're only halfway through and we haven't started the second half yet. And she kind of got up. It was just when she began talking again. And she got up from her bed a bit and she said, right, I've got to get better. We've got to finish the book. and that just shows how much energy she has and what an incredible person she is. And as the great grandson, I've learned so many lessons from her about being happy and just appreciating life and appreciating every moment you have. And that's why even when I have a bad day, I learn from my great grandmother to just smile, because she often says to me that life is like a mirror, and when you smile, it smiles back at you. So that's one quote I would leave the audience with on no matter how bad things are, that the Holocaust survivors have been in this world a light in the darkness for so many years. And unfortunately that light is dwindling as the years go by, but it will be again our responsibility to continue to shine that light in many different ways, whether it be through education or just sharing their quotes or just even being happy in their memory. That's how we have to continue that light and hopefully share it with millions of others across the world.
Well, I mean, both of you are doing a remarkable job, and we're delighted and privileged and honoured that you're speaking with us today, and hopefully we can amplify that light through our channels, through YouTube, and through all the people.
Thank you what you did, because we really, with this, without help of you, what you did, we could not achieve it. So together, and we will achieve.
Yeah, I'm not sure I did anything, but it's a real privilege and an honor. I don't want to drag it on long, because I know you've been talking for a long time. I just have a couple more questions. Is that okay?
That's fine.
It is fine.
And this is just from some of the people, some of my colleagues who've dropped questions in the chat. Patricia asked, how do you let go of the hatred? Or, you know, I'm sure it's a question you hear a lot. It would be normal and natural to, you know, to feel hatred towards the Nazis, and how, you know, that's Patricia's question. How do you let go of that? How do you cope?
Because I try to teach myself, if I hate that, I like them, I cannot say that I like them. But if I do hatred, then I feel only bad. I don't know even how I feel. And I will not do that for myself. I will say other way around to help myself, to help people who cannot alone help to do that, and teach them like yourself and be good. And because everybody can only do what I do. I am, and I have to achieve what I can. And that is what I have to do. And when everybody would think like that the whole world depends on me, and I must achieve good things. And when everybody would think like that, the world would be better.
Yeah, I wish, I pray that
I
everyone.
wish also. But that it sounds so easy, but I know it is not. But really, that is what we have to. Instead, hatred to entertain, to understand each other, because everybody thinks differently. So understand each other.
So we
Try.
should, yeah, try and understand each other's perspective, listen and communicate,
Respect.
and respect one another, even though we different. Respect each other's
And the
differences.
most important, not hate.
Yes, definitely. I think not hating is critical. And I mean, if you
Never.
can have, you know, had your experiences and find a way not to hate, you know, the people who did this to you and all the other victims, then again, I think we should be able to find and elevate ourselves to find that same level of, I don't know, peace, let's say. It's been such a privilege and such an honor to speak to both of you. I think, Dov, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
I can only wish that I was a quarter as effective when I was 18 at getting all this stuff done and doing exams and all the other stuff. And Lily, you are, you know, you're a magnificent shining light across all communities. You know, what you have done is beyond remarkable. And we really appreciate you sharing with us. Your book is magnificent. I know a number of people on the chat have said they've already ordered it. It's Lily's promise, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely worth a read. And we will take the request or the suggestion you made of us of all bearing witness, and now having your story in our hearts as another way of countering hate and discrimination.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you
having
both.
us.
We're very, very lucky and privileged. So please, we wish you good health ongoing, and that you will carry on your mission.
Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that's where we're going to end the talk, but we're hugely grateful.
Thank you.